Welcome to another episode. The question of today is which is better, Azaps, Palace Guards, or Paladins? And in this episode I would like to also answer another question. Some people have been wondering and mostly being confused on what basis do I classify units. So let me explain further. I always classify putting in consideration 1. How overall efficient is the unit, 2. How versatile it is, 3. If the unit exists for a sole purpose, for example, Janissary, clearing hordes of enemies, how good they are at doing their sole purpose. 4. Their leadership, because this is a problem for some people, not everyone is lucky enough to get extra leadership on his armor. 5. What unique stuff can this unit do? This mostly comes with experience, trial and error, so don't blame me. I always try to update my old videos for this same reason, especially after the tides have been shifted for some of the units after the release of the new epic Doctrines. Without any further ado, let's begin with Azaps. Just a little note, if you are super new to the game, I highly suggest you go and watch the list for the seasons to keep up with what you have missed. Okay, so Azaps. As I was saying, they are very efficient, very versatile, and unique. What exactly do I mean by unique? So 1. They get a buff after climbing walls with ladders. This might be very useful in territory wars. 2. Their counter-strike can negate the damage of the first strike from literally anything. What do I mean exactly by anything? From saladars to cavalry charges. You did hear right, cavalry charges. And yes, including the hussars and Liao's rangers as well. So how to do this exactly or with efficiency? Long story short, you need to always fight in white or dispersed formations versus cavalry, so you give time for the counter-strike to work versus 1 or 2 strike maximum during the charge. And I have a separate video for this specific thing if you wanna go and watch it. I will leave its link in the description. Before moving on, I want to highlight something in this video. I have just told you that you need to fight cavalry in dispersed formation. I went into their compact formation right beside the building, in case you noticed. Have you wondered why? The answer to that is pretty simple. I know he gonna focus me, especially with the first skill, the charge of the Armigal Lancers. So I wanted to deal as max damage as I can to his unit, knowing if he charges me, he will have to hit the building, and this will deal some damage to his unit. Then I went in with a counter strike, but the musket did ult his unit, so my plan was kinda ruined, but it doesn't matter, I still won the fight. Sorry to ruin your fun, but what I want from this clip is actually this guy over here. So as you can see, as soon as his counter-strike is triggered, he strikes thrice, dealing 3600 damage each hit. That's the true power of it. Remember, one little thing. During his 3 strikes, he is vulnerable to take damage. But as soon as he's done with it, he goes again into the counter-strike stance.
Eyvallah, kahrımız, kılıcımız, düşmana ziyan eyvallah. Baş büyüyen, sine büyüyen, kılıcım kan eyvallah. Kahrımız, kılıcımız, düşmana ziyan eyvallah.
Moving on to Paladins. They are the second unit to climb the wall in my opinion. With their nice block value and healing skill, they can hold the line, especially on a wall. With their weakness, the cavalry is gone. The unique thing that you have to keep in mind for the Paladins is their charge and 24 hours a day blocking stance. Their charge, as I mentioned before in one of my previous videos, it works exactly like the Shield Maidens, where they will keep charging through the enemy units, especially if they are weak enough to easily be killed by the charge damage. They will only stop when their momentum fades. depending on where you did aim or what they faced during their charge. Now, it's time to compare both units. So a common question is, what happens if the two units meet? Which one will be the winner? So let's assume this scenario. You will be using the Azaps and the enemy is using Paladins. If he charges you and you decide to take the charge with a charge head on, or even decided to stand still and waste your counter strike to absorb some of the Paladins' charge damage, the Paladins will mostly be the winners of this fight. But if you can avoid the charge of the Paladins and you can position your Azaps correctly, use your skills in sequence, you will be the winner, maybe even without losing a single soldier. So, in conclusion, in terms of charge damage, Paladins absolutely win. And in terms of normal attack or skills included, I think they are kinda equal, depending on the commander using each of them. But in the end, we have to admit that the Azaps skills always give them an edge in a melee combat without charges. So, in the end, which one should you go for? I'll make this simple. Azaps, in my opinion, are an S tier unit. They are super versatile, but the Paladins stand up where the Azaps fall. For example, holding a long-term fight, or charging shields in a certain situation. And here's a really quick note. Azaps are really weak versus stalwarts or similar units, so don't try to provoke the brace with Azaps. It will be your loss. So if you want me to judge, if you're new to the game, go for the Paladins. Strong, adequate, reliable, straightforward units, and an easy to use one. If you think you're skilled enough to time your attacks, retreats, and want to handle a more sophisticated unit, then go for the Azaps. In the end, both are fine in territory wars, and it depends on the style of the commander. So you decide which unit is best for you. When it comes to their doctrines and veterancy tree, I'll be showing you that in a second. But keep in mind that the other line of Paladins is utterly useless. If you go for that line, they will not even survive a single fight to heal or even make use of that cooldown reduction. But Azaps are a different story. The other line of the Azaps is actually adequate. Are the Palace Guards' offensive line in the veterancy tree any good? Well, this question is actually very tricky. So let's answer it step by step. Palace Guards. The first thing you need to notice is their brace. Their brace has high cooldown. And there is a little problem with it. You can literally brace and unbrace in the same second. So keep that in mind, because a mispress on the button and your unit is dead. Paladins, in my opinion, are the best to hold a position or a point, especially versus the new stalwarts. They are the ultimate defenders or supporters, in my opinion. Unless you are King Alpha and ready to throw some epic doctrines on them. If you think you have enough experience to play them in offensive form and ready to throw some epic doctrines on them, go ahead, be my guest. But I'm speaking about the majority of players. They do not even have these epic doctrines. So what I'm trying to say here is, don't go offensive without those epic doctrines. So, if you're staying till now, I will assume that you will listen to me and eventually go defensive. So the question now is, what should you be expecting while playing this unit? Or how should you play it? So how you play it is fairly simple. You're here for one purpose, which is holding a point or supporting other troops. So for example, you will see me always doing this combo, just charging in, facing the stalwarts, then brace. This will be kind of a problem to them. Bracing versus stalwarts immediately stops their advance. So if you see stalwarts advancing a point and you want to defend it, you just go in front of them and brace. And believe me, they will take a lot of time to break through your ranks, especially if you go with the formation F2 and the enemy likely will not have a mole. So yeah, they will have enough time. You will have enough time to defend the point. One last thing I need to mention, remember they do not deal enough damage, so don't think about fighting solo. Yes, you will be a nightmare for anyone playing Berserkers, but you need help to actually kill the Berserkers. So always look for 1 or 2 teammates to accompany you. Just a glimpse of what you can actually do with them. You can hold Stalwart's advance, you can literally treat them as shields, like shield wall, shield line, bracing in front of your enemies, blocking their advance. Or you can be the vanguard, the first to go into the fight in the face of Fortebracios. They can tank a lot before they die, so yes, they can work like literally a huge tanky meat shield for the Fortebracio, or versus them, giving your team enough time to actually rotate or eventually kill the Fortebracio and breaking through. And remember that you can actually handle a charge of Omega Lancers, especially in the first 5 seconds from bracing, but not Hussars afterwards. Like, no way you will survive that. And this is one reason I have switched them myself into defensive form. In the defensive form, they can actually work as moving tanks, trying to actually aid other units in the push or the hold of a point. In the end, some important notes that you need to keep in mind while playing Palace Guards. First, in the shield formation, they are dealing piercing damage, so keep that in mind while adjusting their doctrines. However, their piercing damage is a lot weaker than their slashing one. 2. They do not rotate in their shield formation. The Paladins do rotate in their shield formation, making you feel safer, but the Palace Guards will not.